Good evening, good evening, good evening, everybody. Welcome to Black Talk Platform. I am your host, Dr. Deborah Jenkins, and we are here with the second part of our conversation with the men. This is their night. This is when they will be again discussing things that are important to Black men. And I'm here just to guide the conversation along, but I'm also here, like you are here, as a listener, someone who wants to glean and not try to dictate what Black men should say, how Black men should think, and what Black men should do. And so this is a space that I hope we can continue to come back to hear the voices of Black male leaders in and around our communities. And even if they're not so-called leaders, Black men who simply must be heard. And I am happy to give them that platform this evening. With me so far is Pastor Anthony Davis. He is pastor of the Harvest Restoration Ministries in Co-op City, Bronx, New York. He has a unique ministry to young people and also to men, but also he is a leader at an institution of higher education where he has an opportunity to impact the lives of many young people as well as his colleagues. And so I'm really interested to hear how this conversation will go tonight. I'm going to also bring on Minister Yoram Rodriguez right now. Oops. Are you there, Minister?
Trying to adjust it. Yeah, I go.
Okay, welcome. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Good. I'm glad to have you here again. I was just making little brief introductions. Most people will know you all because they have seen you before. Hi, Juanita, coming on in. This is Minister Yoram Rodriguez. He has been on this platform before. He started with this conversation a couple of weeks ago with Pastor Davis and others. As we just started talking about things that are important to Black men. And if it's important to Black men, guess what? It's important to me as a Black woman who loves Black men. Hey, Dr. Celisha, I'm so glad she is like the busiest entertainer. She wears so many hats, but I'm so glad you could peek in tonight, Dr. Celisha Thompson. She is a leader extraordinaire in the world of entertainment. She's the person that you don't see because they're making the artist look so good. Am I right, Doctor? All right, okay. I'm just saying. But I'm glad to have her here, and one of our best friends, Alicia. As you all come in the room, I'm just waiting for the other guests to come. Just at the top of this conversation, I want to say Bishop Darren Ferguson may or may not make it tonight because it is National Night Out. This is a national event that takes place across the country. Pastor Davis and I are usually doing it up here in Co-op City with the 45th Precinct. It is a collaboration between the community and the police throughout the country. And it's really bad right now. And I'm not talking about gang violence, which is all you're hearing about right now. It's really bad. And so I want to, for a second, before we get into the conversation, while I wait for the others to come on, but that is why Bishop Darren Ferguson may not make it. Oh, there's my husband. He's coming on. You ready to come on? Well, hello, Pastor Frank Jenkins. How are you?
Hello.
Okay. Your brothers are always like, tell them I said hi. So now y'all can say hi. Y'all can
What's
say
going
hi.
on, my brother?
Hey, brother. Hey, what's going on, y'all?
Hey, Dr. Osiris. That's another brother who is doing great things up in Mount Vernon. But I was about to say, let me just say this real quick. A couple of things. If you have not seen, or if you do not follow Cop Watch on Instagram, check it out. Maybe follow their handle because they are out there. These are young people who are out here doing what they do. They work, they go to school, they do all the stuff that you and I do as older, more seasoned people. But they're also taking notice of what's going on, at least in New York City with the NYPD. There's a lot of crime, as you know, that's been taking place in the subway system. It's been crazy. And so this particular incident that they caught was quite aggressively dealt with. And I'm being really nice with my language, by a sergeant, badge number 3069. I don't know what precipitated the actions, what led this officer, this sergeant actually, to take this young woman and slam her down to the ground and handcuff her. It was, to me, too brutal for me to repost. And so a young man, his name is Jamal Ali. He simply asked questions. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so harsh? And this officer did not like it. And eventually they made it out of the subway station up to the street. And I don't know if Mr. Ali was still talking, but I didn't see him do anything before the sergeant took him and slammed him to the ground. It's crazy. The video is out there. He subsequently was arrested. He has since been released, but I am just trying to amplify the work that he's doing, because as older people, and we're not old, but we sometimes look down on the way younger people do justice. I'm here tonight to support the efforts of a Jamal Ali and Stefan Banks, who brought it to my attention. And I want to, ask you all to just be mindful when you see the young people. They may be using profanity. So what? They're fed up. Aren't you fed up? I'm fed up. But they're doing it, and they're putting their lives on the line in a different way. So please, let's not disrespect their activism because it doesn't look like our activism. And just, if those of you who pray for Jamal Ali and Stefan Banks in the work that they are trying to do on behalf of Black men. Now, a few weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, time flies so quickly, Stefan Banks had posted "Protect Black Men." And I said to him, oh my goodness, we just did a panel with nothing but Black men talking about issues that matter to Black men. And he in his post script, he said, yes, protect Black women, but also protect Black men. And so to jump into our conversation tonight, based off of his post on Instagram, I feel that you all should not have to make a caveat about protecting Black women if you dare say protect Black men. Can we have that discussion? As Tony is welcome to the stage also right now. Hey, Tony, how are you?
Hey, how are you? How you doing?
All right, we're happy to have you here. Thank you all for joining us this evening. All of the viewers, you guys are such great supporters. Tony, as you were coming on, you may have heard me in the back mention a post that I saw on Instagram posted by Stefan Banks, and it simply said protect Black men. But when he did his description, he said protect Black women also, yes, protect Black women, but also protect Black men. And honestly, I don't feel that I want to keep hearing you all have to make that caveat, because after this year or these several years in Black Lives Matter protests, which have been precipitated by harm done to Black men specifically, right? Why are you all having to also say protect Black women? Anybody, take that away and let's get this conversation started.
Well, personally, I think it's I don't think that there's ever any disclaimer necessary whenever you're speaking about protecting Black men. And I think that comes from a sense of, it's kind of like a manipulative tactic that we've seen, well, that I've personally observed over the years through a lot of feminist and white liberal politics that ultimately demonizes Black men and paints them as the problem. And it's like it's created such an adversarial relationship, an atmosphere, so that whenever you mention anything about Black boys or Black men, it's immediately put right up against Black women or Black girls. I think, I personally think that that's the mission, to keep Black men and Black women fighting. And so when Black men dare to use their voices, we always feel like we have to always attach a disclaimer so that it's clear that we're not, disrespecting Black women or trying to ignore Black women. But what we in essence are doing is we're kind of allowing ourselves to continue to be ignored and being like too apologetic and speaking up for ourselves. Wow. That's how I see it.
Okay, thank you. Who else wants to weigh in on that question or that statement? Anybody?
You want to go, Urim, or you? Okay. I think a lot of it is. I think that what Tony was saying is 100% on point. I think we don't think in terms of protecting Black men. It's not even something that is part of our consciousness, right? And I think a lot of it is there's an emergence of people who are talking about Black male studies and the need for Black male studies. And I think for the most part that people don't understand victimization when it comes to Black men, right? So we don't understand that when it comes to whether it's police violence, even when it comes to matters of domestic violence or sexual abuse, the degree to which Black men are victims. So we don't think in those terms. We don't think that Black men can be victims of again, whether it's domestic partner violence or anything like that, or just abuse. And Black boys in particular are abused sexually in many instances, right? And many times the perpetrators are Black women in a disproportionate level. Yeah. But we don't think like that. So I think some of it has to do with the fact that there's an ideology that's crept into our community, right? That is fueled by white supremacy. So white supremacist notions say that Black men are inherently misogynistic, inherently hypersexualized, and violent and terrible, right? That's the trope that has been placed on Black men. It is a white supremacist trope placed upon us. It's this characterization that somehow we've internalized it. We may have internalized it through feminist thought, and feminist thinking has never really embraced Blackness, right? But it has kind of crept into our philosophy or ideology. It's crept in, and we've embraced it wholesale without critique. So
That's right.
We don't critique feminism. But feminism is not grounded in anything that's empirical. It is a lot of talk, right? It's nothing that is validated, nothing that we can look at and say, hey, this is verified. The data says this, that, or the other. So it's not substantiated by data, but we accept it. So there's certain things that even Black feminists say about Black men that are just not grounded in truth. Yeah. So we say things about Black men as if we are the perpetrators, right? That people, Black women need to be protected, not just from white supremacy, but from Black men also. But the reality is that Black men are victims, and we don't think like that because of this type of ideology that's crept in. So what has to happen is you have to have Black male studies. You have to have someone, and again, this is starting to emerge. There's a lot of writers, thinkers. Even in this conversation, we're beginning to have this platform to talk about these things, and it's an important conversation to have. So when we talk about protecting Black men, it's not even we always feel the need to have the caveat because we're just not used to this idea that Black men are victims, but we are victims in everything, right? We our life expectancy, we lost, as I said last time, 3 years with COVID, the disproportionate amount of Black men that are killed by police. Yes, we know that Black women are killed by police also, but we're so much more.
You just did the caveat. You see, it's something inherent to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But what I'm saying is that but there's so many times more of us being killed by police. We don't think in those terms, right? Mm-hmm. So whether it's life expectancy, police shootings, whether it's various types of illnesses, when it comes to painkillers, when we're sick in the hospital, we're so least likely to get painkillers. We're not viewed as human. We're not viewed as
having feelings
or vulnerable. We don't think in terms of Black male vulnerability, right? So that's why the idea of saying protect Black men is just not that easy because we've allowed such ideology to creep in.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else want to say anything on that?
Yeah. So what Pastor Davis just laid out. What tends to happen is that when we talk about this victimization that takes place against Black men, right? Black men as victims, it feminist thought tends to say that based upon that victimization, we now internalize it and then project it onto Black women or the Black community. And that's a falsehood that has also grown. Black men are not contributing to the patriarch by oppressing their women. And this is one of those themes that's been
Uh-oh.
that's been projected, that we are somehow oppressing Black women to contribute to the patriarchy. And what Pastor Davis has laid out is that no, we're not contributing to the patriarchy. We're not victims who are victimizers. We are victims, point blank, period. Nothing else. And I'll leave it there.
Okay. That's Frank. Did you want to say something?
Well, when you talk about the idea of Black men being, spoken of or pictured as bestial or animalistic and not capable of human thought or feeling, that was captured and polarized in that movie called Birth of a Nation, where they took white men and put them in blackface and had them running around, supposedly raping white women and just out of control. And then that same mentality that was birthed in that picture, which Woodrow Wilson, by the way, had screened in the White House. So you see exactly how mainstream that thought was in that day, in the 1910s. But then you had the newspaper magnate, I forget his name, but he was one of the largest newspaper magnates back in the day, and he was really the inventor of what they call yellow journalism. And he talked about the idea that because he owned a newspaper, he also owned plenty of paper interests, and he didn't want competition from hemp for his paper products. And so he decided the best thing to do is to use my huge paper interest and newspaper interest and media footprint to begin to demonize hemp and what we now know as marijuana. And so before then, it wasn't known as marijuana. It was just, it was Washington made hemp rope, and so, these things were, and paper was made out of hemp. And so he used racism and the idea that Black men high on marijuana would just lose their minds and rape every white woman they saw was the way in which you got marijuana made illegal. And look at how many of our brothers and sisters have gone into the criminal justice system over marijuana and over these last decades. And so we have to understand that there is always a monetary interest in creating division and stereotyping people, and so it's not simply about the idea that they want to create or that they're just racist. They are, there's no doubt about that. But they also have an economic interest in doing these things and creating division. Divide and conquer is a tried and tested and true technique when people want to entrench their power, and that's what they do.
Yeah. No, thank you all for setting it off like that, because and I'm just pondering what Minister Rodriguez said also, because I think we have to address that. But the victimization, and even the fact that you all might use that word, two of you have now used that word, right? And some will say that you all as men don't have the right to say that you're victims. And even though Pastor Davis honed in on sexual abuse and domestic abuse on men by women, you still should be able to voice that. Black men and black boys need to be protected, but not just in the realm of personal relationships, sexual abuse, and domestic violence. We're also talking about the statistics that Pastor Frank was just talking about, the incarceration rates, right? Even though the statistics show in terms of crack, we already know about the marijuana, right? The federal government needs to decriminalize marijuana, right? It just does. It's still criminalized by the federal government, but it needs to be decriminalized by them. But statistics also show that 30% whites use crack, y'all, more than blacks and Latinos. But who swells the prisons? Black and Latinos. So there is still, there's always going to be this upside downness to the injustice until we actually stop allowing ourselves to be divided against each other. This, like you mentioned, Minister Rodriguez, the last time, that there are several platforms on YouTube that are growing for spaces for men, your voices like this. We need so many more, because even though Pastor Davis was not attempting to do the caveat, it's so embedded in your psyche, right? As black men, and
Yep.
don't let me put anything on you, but it's so embedded in you from what's expected of you that it's almost very natural. It's as natural as drinking a sip of water, right? We want to change that. We want you all to be seen, and we want you to be heard. But guess what? On your own terms. So let me sit back as you all start talking about this notion of strength versus weakness that we sort of got into last time, because Bishop Ferguson, who's not going to make it after all, everybody, he had mentioned his vulnerabilities, right? And how he went into a setting where he shared his story. And for those of you who missed his story, it's a powerful one. Please go to YouTube, find Black Talk platform, where we have the all male panel. I think that was 2 weeks ago, guys. I'm thinking, but it should be the one right before this one, because we didn't have one last week. So anyway, he talked about how he really didn't care, because he's going to be vulnerable, and if that means crying in front of a large audience, that's what he's going to do, and not worry about it. Why don't more black men feel that they can adopt that type of mantra as you go in and out of situations? Anybody?
I think because we don't know who we are, and society has engineered us in such a manner that, you know, the things that should come natural to us are foreign, and we almost feel like it's a betrayal of what we're supposed to be as men whenever we show any form of vulnerability, and that causes us to often shrink ourselves. Like when I was hearing when Pastor Davis was talking, and you did that tiny little disclaimer, I only pointed it out because I wanted us to see how, you know, embedded it is in us, that we always, even when we speak any type of empowerment or just any truth, you know, that gives us a platform, of apologetic nature, we gotta kind of shrink back a little bit and say, well, you know, black women too, we were not trying to offend. And that's what I want to get away from. So when I say that black men don't know who they are, it's like, I want us, one of those steps to finding that strength is standing firmly in who you are, unapologetically, without this need to shrink yourself. Like, I remember when I was younger, and all of this is rooted in so-called white supremacy. And I call it so-called because I don't believe that white people are supreme to anyone. So, but when I was younger, whenever I would walk down the street and there was like, let's say some white people walking towards me, you ever kind of shrink yourself to look a little less intimidating, or you know that she's going to grab her purse, so you just kind of move a little bit away across the street. See, that's a byproduct of this white supremacist dogma that we've been living under for so long. So I'm just correlating that to the same thing that we experience as black men, feeling that we have to shrink the innate qualities of who we are as to not be deemed as either threatening or weak, violent, out of control, too sensitive, because it's like every single stigma is just thrown on us in this society today. So that's a lot of weight. That's a lot of pressure on black men. And then I feel like whenever black men react as any human would to all of these stressors, it validates, for everyone. All see, this is who they are. I told you, they're angry. We're not allowed to have a breakdown. We're not allowed to cry. We're not allowed to talk about our feelings, because based on someone else's definition of manhood, we may not fit into, the category of being men. So I think black men need to redefine strength. We need to help make each other stronger. And I think the way that we make each other stronger is by supporting each other in confidently standing who we are, unapologetically, and not allowing anyone else on the outside in our relationships, because I think our relationships get so infiltrated that even our own women don't even truly understand what black manhood is about anymore. Anyway.
And before anyone responds, no, this is y'all's ranting hour. I wanted to Celisha, I was sort of chuckling, but she's absolutely right. Anybody can weigh in on this. I want to read in. Look what she said. She said Van Jones cries all the time. Do we want to talk about him? I don't know, Celisha. I don't know if we want to talk about him in that regard. But Van Jones, he has a big platform, right? He has a huge platform. And talk back to me, Celisha. He has a huge platform. He just received $100 million from Jeff Bezos to distribute as he wishes, right? Mm-hmm. So he is inside. These brothers are not necessarily inside where that space is being given to them. And so he is an example of someone who does cry often in a public sphere. Celisha, that's yours. That's your comment. Go on, Tony.
Personally, this is my personal opinion.
Okay.
Van Jones represents the white corporate media's caricature of what a black man is. Crying, whining, hey, no, thank you for being so good to us. Finally, we've overcome. That's not, to me, that's not the manhood I'm talking about. I think that whole timid, please help us, oh, we all can hold hands and overcome racism, that's rewarded, as you see. The man is given $100 million. You know why? Because he's safe. He's a safe caricature of what a black man is supposed to be. Non-threatening, very passive, whiny, crying at the slightest little signal of progress or so-called progress. And no, because I'm sorry, no, that's not the manhood I'm talking about. Mm-mm.
I got to tell you, I before you mentioned the Jeff Bezos thing, I had absolutely no concern or interest in anything Van Jones has to do with. But now that you mentioned Jeff Bezos, that's the one that just blasted himself into space, right?
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I thought. The CEO of Amazon.
Yeah. Former.
That Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
That Jeff Bezos.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. The one who readily admitted that the only reason he was able to go to space was because of the way he was robbing his own workers and
Yeah,
customers for the last 20 years. He not only did he
he
laugh in
thanked
our
them.
faces, yeah, not only did he laugh in everybody's face and say, "Watch me go to space." Afterwards, he literally admitted, "Yes, I'm a crook, I'm a thief, and that's how I did it. Thank you, everybody, for giving me your money. Yes, thank you."
Yeah.
So now that you told me
Mm.
Van Jones is tied in with him, no thanks. But one thing I will say is we have to be very careful about how we absorb media. And I'm talking
Yep.
about everything from the local news in the morning to the biggest blockbuster. We have to be very careful in that when we see someone being portrayed anywhere, are they being portrayed as a fully rounded human being? And what I mean by that is, when one of the things I learned when studying literature is you had two types of characters. You had rounded characters and then you had flat characters. Flat characters
Hmm.
were simply all you saw was either their violence or you saw their anger or you saw, just one side. They
One
were flat,
dimensional.
one
That's
dimensional,
right.
right? But a rounded character, you saw all the different dimensions of what a human being is about. And so we find ourselves in many instances in the movies and whatever else, we're being portrayed as these flat characters, these one dimensional stick figures in a sense, where
Hmm.
there's no reason to even take any thought as to what we really are about beyond whatever it is we're being portrayed in that particular movie. And remember that the images that whatever image that they put on TV or in the movies or on the radio is designed for them to make money. And so whatever they think is going to sell that day is what they're going to put out. Whether it portrays us in a good light or a bad light, it doesn't matter to them as long as it's making money. You
Mm.
understand? And so one thing I will say about strength is I think strength, part of being, of having and displaying strength is knowing when to kind of hold your strength back. I remember I grew up in a probably 95, 99% white neighborhood. My parents were from South Jersey. And when they moved to the Bronx, they didn't know what neighborhoods were what. And so, they had to make a quick move, and we ended up in a building where the neighborhood was 95% white. And when I was a little kid, I used to fight all the time. I would fight at the drop of you didn't all you had to do was look at me and we let's go. And so I remember when I went to school, I said, okay, I'm not gonna let any of these little white kids think that they're gonna pick on me because I'm the only black kid. And I made it my business to whoop everybody, the biggest to the littlest. We won't fight. And so I remember we had parent teacher night one year, and the teacher sat. We sat down. My mother was there. She sat down and she said, Frank does very well, with his schoolwork. He does a good job. He understands everything. He's doing really well. The only problem though is that he fights all the time. And if he doesn't stop fighting, he's going to get left back. Now, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm of that age where if you got left back, first of all, it was going to be all kinds of butt whooping when you get home. Number one, you might not make it home. Number one. Number two, all I could think of was how I was going to be staring out the window watching all the other kids play all summer while I was grounded. So I said, okay, I got to make a change, and I'm going to wrap it up. Went back to school, decided, okay, I can't fight anymore. I'm just going to go to school. I'm going to do what I got to do. No more fighting. So, of course, all the other little kids started to take notice. Oh, Frank's not fighting. What's going on? So one little kid that I had whooped several times, knew I could whoop him, decided he was going to test me. And so he called me. I'm not going to use the words he said. I'll just use I'll use what the dots that you see or the stars that you see when somebody writes a word that they're not supposed to write.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "What are you going to do You effing N-word. Now I looked at him, and my mind was saying, well, the part of me that just would have jumped all over him and whooped him until he was clear or invisible, said, okay, I'm going to take this boy and drag him all up and down this schoolyard. We were outside. But the part of me that said, you know what? I can't do it because, first of all, I'll get left back. And that word just echoed in my mind, back, 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 back. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to let him go. And that's exactly what I did. I didn't fight him. I let him go. He went about his business. I went about my business. And obviously I passed the third grade. And so, but that's what I had to learn as part of growing up, as part of being a man, was you have to know sometimes your greatest strength is not using your physical strength, but using the strength of your mind, using the strength of your willpower in order to not put yourself in a situation where you're going to, where eventually you're just going to be the loser. And so,
Yeah. And I know you all, Pastor Davis and Minister Rodriguez, you want to jump in there, but Celisha actually had put another point when you were speaking, Tony. I don't know if you all are seeing the comments like I am, but I want you all, Pastor Davis and Yoram, try to respond to this, and then we'll come back around, because she makes a good point here. She says, pointing out similarities isn't always a person shrinking themselves. It could just be them showing similarities, or it could just be showing similarities or contrast. And I think that we have to know when those times are also occurring. But quite often, you all are being asked to, ignore your feelings, ignore the significance of your situations, for the sake of actually everybody else. That's what I see sometimes. But can you all address that? Because I do believe she's correct. But where do we find that balance?
Go ahead, Yoram. You got it.
No. First of all, a lot of times when we have to display that strength under control, that is a survival mechanism. It was even something that our parents taught us. Before we walked out the door. Watch how you act, watch how you talk to people, because this could mean your very life. Watch how you talk to the police. I mean, just the way you carry yourself. Watch how you conduct yourself. Don't wear a hoodie. Take the hoodie off. Don't wear those types of clothes when you go into that neighborhood. All of these things that our parents, socialized into us, and this was, years of that, and we And so that's one part of it, where we know that if we behaved in a certain kind of way, it could cost us our very lives. So we had to operate with that strength under control. And also, as my brother Frank was saying, when you are able to use your mind like that doesn't necessarily mean that you're weak. It could be viewed as weakness, but it also can be viewed as a form of protest, right? You don't always have to use your fist in a way of protest, and you can also use your mind. I mean, when we talk about the issues of slavery, like when we talk about slavery, they often play dumb, not because they were dumb, but they knew that they would play like they didn't know how to fix something. In the masses, from the masses' perspective, from the slave master's perspective, it was that they were dumb, that they didn't know anything, but they knew that they wasn't going to work that day. So they were going to behave in a certain kind of way as a form of protest. So it wasn't a form of weakness, but it was a form of using intellect.
Awesome.
Yep. That's right.
Hey, welcome to the platform tonight. A returning guest, of course, Craig Visions. We are happy to have your voice added to the conversation. I just wanted to know if anybody wanted to talk about that nuance that Celisha brought up about, it doesn't have to be conflictual necessarily, but you don't have to. Right. You all can keep talking about the strength piece, because I do know that there are times, I know for me, you all know me, I talk a lot. So there are those times when I have to do what Pastor Frank was saying. It's like sort of pull back. Like I mentioned last time, Pastor Davis had made a post that every situation doesn't require a response. And I've had to learn that myself.
Flesh out her question against make sure I understand it in terms
Right.
of similarity.
Pin it back again.
Yeah, put it back up.
Yep, there you go.
Yeah.
And Celisha, if you want to make it even clearer, that's fine too. But that's what she had put.
Pointing out
After you're done, I'll respond.
Isn't always a person shrinking themselves. It could be showing similarities or contrasting. And I'm assuming it has to. I think it has to do with the fact that
the disclaimer.
Well, right, yeah,
Yes.
the disclaimer
Yes.
showing that, maybe, I mean, sometimes it is shrinking, sometimes it's not. It depends on the context of that. I think, but I think that's the nuance that you're talking about, Pastor Deb, is trying to understand that, and and I agree. Maybe it's not always shrinking. It's just trying to show, hey, Black men do deal with this just like you do, and we go into that. But I think one of the points that Tony was making is that being unapologetic, and that's something that I think that we struggle with, is the unapologetic part, and I think that's the crux of it, right? Finding that liberty, the freedom to do it, because what we've been wrestling with is the fact that it's a struggle for us, right? That we always have to have the caveat. We always have to, because it's something that we, as a Black man, you wrestle with. Even Pastor Frank talking about, dealing with getting left back, right? Or I'm talking about, if you don't handle yourself correctly, you could die. Those are the types of real time decisions that Black men are always having to make. Mm-hmm. And I don't think people understand how psychologically, how it's a heavy thing to deal with all the time. It's burdensome to deal with that. And so Black men deal with a lot of burden when it comes to that. But when it comes to like vulnerability or strength, I think for the most part that, what we don't understand is that we're Black men on both, that we're vulnerable and that we also we're human. We're not, like Pastor Frank was saying, is that we're not flat characters. We're multi-dimensional. We have layers to us, right? And that's something that people have to understand, that what we have in terms of this trope or this caricaturization of Black men, especially the last 40, 45 years, is a different thing. A lot of what we see today as far as our problems are not long-standing problems. But Black men have always been strong men, family-oriented men, fathers, right? Whether through slavery, through Reconstruction, through the Great Migration, through all of these things, Black men and the Black family unit have always withstood all of these things, and Black men leading and being at the heads of their households, right? But in the aftermath of civil rights, it seemed like everything about white supremacy was to destroy the headship of Black men as far as in the family. So we talk about the death of King, the death of Malcolm. We talk about, of course, COINTELPRO. We talk about even from 1965 up until that time. I mean, in terms of Black households, like almost 80% of Black households, there was a man and a woman. It's not until after that, 1965, a little bit beyond that, we start to see Black men not so much in the home and in terms of like divorce rates and single parenting and things of that nature, and much in terms of mass incarceration really is a post 1965 thing. Because prior to that, the majority of people in jail were white people. Yeah. Like Black men weren't in jail like that. All of these things are recent phenomenon because it's a concerted effort in the last 40 years in the aftermath of civil rights, right? White supremacy has found a different way to deal with the problem of Black men. Mm-hmm. Separate them from the families.
That's right. That's right.
Kill them in the street with by the state, right? And or incarcerate them.
Yep.
And make the household vulnerable, and then feed white supremacist ideology within Black feminist thought to maintain this division.
Yes.
And so racism is so, in terms of the philosophy of it, the ideology of it, man, it's so cunning. We're constantly having to deal with more than just color. There's a great deal of psychological warfare here that I just think we're unaware of. And we have to become more aware of it and have conversations like this so that we don't get caught up, because there's no reason why we should be so divided when we've never been divided like this in terms of men and women,
right,
throughout our history prior to, I say, 65, 66 or so, when you look back. But I'm more of a historical kind of guy, so I analyze that kind of stuff, and I can see that. Yeah.
No, but that's good, because you have to know. I don't know who said it before. It might have been Dr. Celisha. I don't know, but somebody said is because we don't know. It was you, Tony. It was you on the panel here. You said we don't know who we are. You know, we have to know who we are, and a part of knowing who we are is knowing where we've been and where we've come from, and how that's even been abused. Because I was listening as you were just talking, Pastor Davis, and just running through all of that history from 65 forward. I don't know if anyone else could feel it, but I could just feel that weight, that burden that he was talking about, that these Black men and all Black men, I don't care if they're Van Jones, Michael Basin, because he was mentioned in the comments as well. I don't care who they are. They carry this burden. It really doesn't matter how much money they amass. They carry this burden. And that's why we are doing this. That's why I want you all to just go. You know, Craig, you can jump into the conversation, but Tony, I don't know if you wanted to respond back, or should we just keep going forward?
It was just brief, because I just wanted to answer the actual question, you know, as it was laid out, that Celisha laid out about, you know, it being sometimes when we offer these disclaimers, it could just be, you know, just offering the contrast. My answer to that is that we don't always need to contrast our point of view with anybody else. We sometimes Black man issues, leave it at Black man issues. There has to be a point when we are in a position where we can focus on ourselves without always having to pull everybody in. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this feeling like we have to always pull everyone in and shrink ourselves. I mean, yeah, it's nice to be able to consider other people and contrast our situation with theirs, but we're not doing that right now. And the problem is that we always feel compelled to do that. That is the issue, that we always feel compelled to well, you know, we don't want to offend the women. That's the issue. And I think a lot of times our women have this expectation that Black men cannot speak about Black men issues without them being pulled into it. Like you have to always be the center of attention. Now, this is not for me to impugn all Black women, but we have to be, let's be real. Let's be real about it. You know, I'm going to be real about it. I think that we have been engineered in this society where Black women have been placed in the head position of families and households of this community. And with that kind of comes this level of intoxication. Because whenever Black men become the center of the conversation, here comes somebody, oh, well, what about black women? Well, what about us? I'm tired of that incessant need for attention. So that means, I'm sorry, our women you're gonna have to face that. You understand? Because we can't talk about accountability in Black men all the time, but never ever see any real self-inventory on the part of our women. We see it here and there, but they have our women have an entire system that props them up above their men. That is a fact. You have movements that prop Black women up above us, place them in the driver's seat. Yet when Black men try to step up and say, well, hold on, baby, move over. Let me take the wheel for a minute. Nah, you're not having that. You're not having that. So what I'm saying is maybe it's time to just sit back for a second and listen. because that's the biggest problem I see today when black men try to communicate their issues. No one is listening. And if you actually hear some of the stuff that we're saying, either some cognitive dissonance kicks in, and y'all get offended, and then you start challenging that man's masculinity as a defense mechanism. So we know what it is. So that's my point. Be unapologetic. Black men, don't feel the need to pull into the conversation when you're talking about yourselves and our boys and the things that they need. This is their time. Just like y'all got Black Girl Magic and Black Girls Rock. We need something for black men and black boys. Let us focus, please. Stay focused.
Y'all have black boy joy. What?
Yeah,
I'm not that person, so let me just stay out of this. Go on, Craig.
I'm sorry.
Go.
Okay, Craig.
I love you, Dr. Celisha.
I don't know, Celisha. I got you, girl. I got you. They got black boy joy, right? Go on, Craig.
I don't know if I want that. But I was reading Celisha said, we like attention. That was funny. But
acting up over in the comments.
Just to kind of piggyback. Sorry for being late, everyone. Good evening.
We can't
everyone.
hear you too well.
Oh no, I knew that was gonna happen. Oh,
I can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Maybe because Tony got so excited and he was so loud.
My bad. I'm sorry.
Craig. No, it's okay. It's okay.
Can y'all hear me?
Sure. Yeah,
I hear you.
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh, you can hear me, right? Okay, cool. So I just wanted to piggyback off of what Tony was saying. As far as allowing the men to be centered and celebrate in the same way that black women are in this era now where they are being elevated across the board. And I remember us in our last conversation where we talked about safe spaces for black men to kind of have their time to talk about their issues and to kind of be the center of the conversation. And our last conversation, what was so funny that in between our last conversation and now, a comedian, I think her name is Amanda Seals, gave her a pushback against the father of Serena and Venus Williams being the center of the Venus and Serena story. And I just thought that kind of supports what Tony is saying right now, where whenever we start to highlight black men, there's black women to step in and say, well, hold on, wait a minute. Her words were literally, why is this story about him? So
wow.
it's like there's a trend here that kind of is, like Tony was saying, is kind of overstepping black men and kind of trying to remove us in any situation, in any space, as being, as Tony said, in the driver's seat. And I think that's sort of unfair. And that's something that we need to notice and address, unpack, and correct that. Because we need our time too. Yep. We need our celebration too.
Absolutely.
And then y'all complain that y'all can't get no man. That's just crazy.
So we saw that. We had a conversation a while back with Ice Cube about Ice Cube and his contract with Black America, and we saw the attacks that he received. And I point out too. I mean, I remember when he sat in on the panel, and Vivica Fox was like, "Well, what about the black women?"
Yeah,
and he was like, "What do you mean? This is about black people. It's not separating black." Men and black women. And then I remember him sitting in an interview with another gatekeeper, because we mentioned all these gatekeepers, Van Jones, Amanda Seals. These are all gatekeepers. These are all people who have been propped up to be speakers for black people. Roland Martin.
Speak, brother.
So Roland Martin had Alicia Garza, one of the founders of the Black Lives Matter movement. He basically used her he sicked her on Ice Cube. Wow. And Alicia Garza had the nerve to talk about she's been in the game for 20 years. And I'm like, well, what streets have you walked for 20 years? And to question the militancy of a brother like Ice Cube. I mean, you just go, I mean, because we all can express our militancy in different ways. So when you look at his whole catalog of music, when you look at Ice Cube's catalog of music, nowhere in his music is anti-black, is pro-black, is powerful, is militant. He's been in the forefront. He employs black people. You know, he presents in his movies black people in a positive light, not flat, and you know, and multi layered. So we saw when a black man who said, look, whether we agreed with him or not, it was because that was my point in the beginning. We didn't have to agree with him. We have to agree with his politics, the fact that he approached Donald Trump. He was under attack because of the simple fact that he said, look, I'm going to stand up and I'm going to take a position. I'm going to take a position of leadership. We're going to have to do something. And I witnessed how, you know, black women attacked him because of the simple fact that he even said, look, I'm going to sit down with somebody that we disagree with. And that's just another issue. We can't look at it. Is Joe Biden better for us than Donald Trump? I don't think so. I mean, I don't see it, but we have to be able to talk to everybody.
Let me I pinned that because you brought up the Fox Soul interview, and I don't know if Dr. Celisha actually produced that one, but her sister, and many of you may know that her sister's superstar, in my opinion anyway, rhythm and blues artist Selena Johnson. She's one of the guests, the host of that same show. So she's just saying, and all of us have not seen the full interview with Ice Cube, so she's just encouraging all of us to go back and watch it again. But I mean, to your point about that, because we did talk about that a couple of times on this show, about how Ice Cube was treated. But it wasn't only so I didn't see the full one episode that Celisha's talking about either, and perhaps the one that you saw, Minister. But not only black men do have a problem with black women, and you're talking about in the political realm, and I would love to hear y'all talk about that, because we have a way of straight canceling black men for saying what you just said, and I think I might have been speaking, and people may not have heard you about how much you question how much better Biden is for us than Trump is. People will be like, what did he say?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they sure will. But you know what? Most of those responses are just rooted in black misandry anyway, because I mean, most people just don't want to admit the fact that you hate black men. Let's be real about it, because you willing to cancel us for the stuff that you watching white men and white women do all day long. Let's be real about it. Let's be real about it. So, you know, I say, like a person like me, I say, thank God for genuine self-esteem. Thank God for entrepreneurship, because I am free. There's no feeling like being free to speak your own words without the fear of being quote unquote canceled. That's why I suggest to black people, listen, start your own business, start networking with each other, build your platforms, because the key to real independence for our community is ownership. We must own our own media, own our own institutions, everything. This is why we are so dominated and controlled. This is why we are so afraid to use our voices publicly, because we know we might get fired from our job.
Exactly.
We're not gonna be as popular, because people are gonna be, insulting us and saying this and that. Oh, who is he? Oh, let's cancel him. I don't care about being canceled. All I care about is the truth. You understand? And when you're a person that you know what black people need? Black people need to rediscover self-esteem, their true self-esteem, because most of the problems that we have today in this society are rooted in this incessant need for acceptance by other groups. We care about what everybody else thinks about us except for our own people. So we need to rediscover that sense of pride in who we are and have some self-esteem and stop worrying about everybody else and speak your truth.
That's right. Oh my goodness. Whoop, ja.
Sorry, I don't know I'm yelling
Let's
so
set
much
him
today.
off.
My bad.
Let's set him off. I'm so happy to see Minister Rodriguez's better half, because that's how we talk also, right? His other half, beautiful Jatan Whitley, who I'm trying to get on Black Talk also. We got to talk. But because she's doing things. She's doing things. So yeah, I mean, I don't know what really set Tony off right then, but it's stuff that y'all just need to say. I don't know. I don't know. But it's things that you all have to say, and everybody is agreeing with what you're saying. But Tony, let me push back a little bit. Everybody can't start their own job or their own business.
True.
Everybody can't leave those jobs that require that they speak the language of their overlord.
Okay.
So tell us how we get free. How do we get free?
Well, one thing that you can do, if you're someone who is beholden to others economically, you know, you're tied into certain workforces, one thing you can do is stop parroting the nonsense that is being spread through propaganda of white media, because it's not just about us not using our voices to speak the truth. Sometimes we need to learn to shut up. And that's something I firmly believe in, because I think far too often our own people, we become the mouthpieces for a system that is actively working against us. So, you know what I'm saying? You've heard the old saying, if you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all. Then don't say anything. Yeah. And guess what? You can still do works behind the scenes. You can still offer support in your actions, because it's not just words. It's actions. It's our deeds. What are we doing to contribute to remedying the situations that we are experiencing in our community? Activism isn't just getting on social media or showing up at a protest line. You know what I'm saying? Activism is, what are you doing when nobody else is looking? That's what matters. That's where your character is displayed. So I don't really care about the public stuff. I'll say what I got to say. Great. I have the benefit of being able to do that. There are others as well. But unfortunately, many of those gatekeepers that Brother Rodriguez mentioned earlier, they got a big bag attached to their words, to what they're going to say. So even though they may not be hurting financially, but they want that bag. They want more and more and more as their handlers continue to dangle that carrot in front of them. They're going to continue to work against what we truly need as a community. So I think we really need more pushback on the part of brothers and sisters out there who are, I mean, verbally, I'm saying, like vocally, who are not as attached financially or socially to these systems. We got to stop being afraid to use our voices, because we see what happens to those who actually use their voices. Look at Minister Farrakhan. They just did the same thing to Brother Reza Islam. I'm telling you, this is not about religion. This is not about like any of that stuff. This is about when black men specifically speak, and when they actually when they actually influence the minds of the masses of black people, this system finds that incredibly dangerous. Yeah. And you can always see in their reaction to it when they immediately silence us. So always know that when it comes to the voices of black men, it is in the best interest of this white supremacist system to keep us silent. Don't play into that and fight against it.
Okay.
And, you know, just to go along with what you're saying, Brother Tony, then not only are they afraid of black men who can influence black people, but they are severely afraid of black men who can influence white people.
Yes.
Ooh.
Yes.
I mean, one of the greatest examples is Brother Fred Hampton. You know,
yes.
I don't know how many of y'all saw the biopic, but you know, it was awesome. And you know, I was just watching a documentary last night about Boys to Men. You know, and you know, they came up in the 90s, the early 90s. And they knocked, I believe it was Elvis, off his record of 13 weeks. They, you know, at number one, they went 14. Yep. Then they came back with another album and went 15, knocked themselves off. Then they came back with another album and went 16, right? Wow. Boys to Men looked like they would never go anywhere, right? until they brought on NSYNC and 98 Degrees, you know, all those 90s Elvises, you know, because Elvis never wrote a song. Y'all know that, right? He admitted he never wrote a song. He only got songs from black folks.
From black people, yes.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Every song, every move, every lick he played on that guitar, he got from black folks. Okay? And so they brought on all of these little boy bands, and the next thing you know, Boys to Men were gone off the scene. They playing in, you know, 50 folks in a little, you know, little backwaters.
Wow.
But prior to that, when they had that success, their success was crossover success. They were on the pop charts. They weren't just on R&B. They were on the pop charts. And little girls, you know, of that persuasion, right?
Yeah.
They had posters up in their bedrooms of Boys to Men.
Of them black boys. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Come on.
And they, you know, they don't want that. And so we have you know, we have to be careful about how we are who we're listening to, and what the agenda really is behind what they're saying, because there's always an agenda, you know.
Yeah. Before you guys continue, we're at 1:05. Do you all mind going until 8:30? Do you mind? Audience, y'all can hang with us.
You told me 1 hour. You told me 1 hour.
I know.
I'm standing up for the brothers.
You've known me for forever, and you know if it's an hour, put 30 minutes onto that. You already know.
Listen, overtime is time and a half. I just want you to know. It's time and a half.
Was talking about being free. Look, look, we having a husband-wife discussion, aren't we? But if y'all can just hang with us until 8:30. But let me say this. Let me just ask you all this. I see the response to you all, this platform, on this panel, you all as a paneler. It's so incredibly positive over here. Would you all want to do this like once a month? I don't want you all to disappear. I don't want this to be like a fad. Like Black Talk Platform did 2 episodes with Black men only. You know, would you all be willing to do this monthly?
Sure. Yeah, that's of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you are all influential in your own spaces, but you are the givers, right? You're the leaders, you're the givers. You need to be able to just dump it. And whoever doesn't like it, so what? You know, at least here, Tony, since all of us can't have our own businesses, since all of us can't experience the kind of freedom that you have, sir, on this platform, guess what? Y'all can. Just don't drop.
I didn't mean it that way.
Don't drop no F-bombs. We don't want YouTube to shut us down or Facebook to come up with stuff. But y'all can be free here. If we can do this once a month, I would love it. I would so really enjoy listening to you all discuss on a monthly basis. How does that sound over there, everybody? Somebody, look, Reverend Barbara's like, please do it monthly. And you're right, Celisha. We're not always going to agree, but it's important to see Black men get it out there. You all need to be able to speak sometime, because the world, you know, I'm going to go back to what you said, Pastor Davis. I do want to hear from you, Craig, too. And everybody. And I'm just going to say this a little bit and let you all fill out the hour, the rest of the hour. You all have so much on your place. You're looked upon as those who are supposed to lead your families, but like Tony said, once women get the power, sometimes we don't want to relinquish it, right? It is so true. It's absolutely true. Many of the statistics that you share with us about the history of how they continuously, and I'm talking about those who are in power. We're not in power because we have money. The people who have the authority to change our way of living, the way we see things, are the ones who have the true power. And that's usually from a white supremacist perspective. They have steadily, from the late 60s, as you said, Pastor Davis, separated and eased the Black man out of the household. And so when he wants to come back, he's got to ask permission from the women who were crying when her man was put out of the house. One of the best movies that depicts this is Claudine, and I'm pretty sure most of us have seen that. You know, she had to hide every little piece of evidence that a man was there. So in other words, this white caseworker was telling her, you're not even supposed to have a man. She had to move everything that looked like he had even been there. And that's where it began. And then you get to the 80s with crack, and our children are in foster home. It's just really, really bad. And then you talk about, Pastor Frank, the whole Boys to Men and the NSYNCs and the other groups like that, the new Elvises that came about that brought Boys to Men off their perch. You all get on a perch unless you're willing to acquiesce, like in my opinion, a Van Jones does, as well as many others. So Roland Martin, I think you mentioned him, Craig. And then if you're gonna stay up there, you have to have the same talking points as those that they give to you. That's why we're trying to create some independent media, so we don't have to depend on people who are sold out to the big wigs, the ones who have the power. Talk about what your voices mean to our community, if you don't mind. Anybody, take that away. Said a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot was said throughout the whole thing. I think one of the things is that Black men, we have to start to protect our image. We have to start to protect our image, and we have to begin to, I guess, show the positive aspects of our image in a more positive light. And what I mean by that, and where I'm going with this, is that as we talked about history, and we talked about how the Black man was depicted, like, you know, if we talk about antebellum slavery, we talk about the Sambo, we talk about the minstrel character, and then when we move on to post-slavery, we see that the Black brute is what's being shown now. And now this image now that's coming out, I sent Pastor Davis this picture of Nas, right? And it's contrasted. Nas was our generation, and now little Nas X, or Nas in his pink cowboy suit, is their generation, now. And I think that's important, because when we talk about Black men in leadership roles, we are seeing the removal of the heterosexual Black male in leadership positions in a lot of these movements. Black Lives Matter is criminal with this. It's criminal with this, where you've seen the removal of the heterosexual Black male. You won't see him in the front lines of the movement. You won't see him speaking at the rallies. You won't even hear about the protection that Black males have given to a lot of these rallies that have taken place, you know, in the past about police brutality. So I think that we have to protect the image of the Black male, that we can, because we've been talking about this theme of being strong, that we need to protect that image of the strong Black man. We need to be able to puff our chests out. We need to be able to talk firmly and strongly when we disagree with something. We don't need to acquiesce, a kowtow, or sit down. I have a son, and we teach our son to speak up for himself, you know, and speak about the biblical principles that we taught him in our household. We teach him to speak that way, and not to be afraid, not to back down from what it is that we teach him. So we have to protect that image of the Black man as being strong, as being powerful, and not let the media frame that narrative of what the Black man should be like or what he should look like.
Right, but I agree with everything that Yoram said. One of the things that happens with that is radical Black masculinity is dangerous, right? And anytime you project that, especially with intelligence, and because anytime black men project that, it benefits not just himself, it benefits his community, it benefits his family, right? So when black men do well financially, his family does well. When he goes to church, the family goes to church. Like it's just that kind of effect that he has on things. When he becomes the conscious of America, people follow, whether you're King, Malcolm X, but that's why they become dangerous. That's why they have to be shot, killed, Fred Hampton, whatever that is. These are super masculine, intelligent men. They you know, as Celisha says, they become fearful of us. So one of the leaders of this sort of black male studies movement, Dr. Tommy J. Curry, right?
Yes.
He wrote the book The Man Not, which is very powerful book. And it deals with much of the stuff that we're talking about here, right? But in the academy, like, this dude had to deal with the ramifications of his ideology, right? And so he's getting death threats. This is a faculty member that had to go to the UK and get out of the US because of the threats on his life, because what we're talking about is very revolutionary. Whenever you're talking about, because really a free black man makes black people free. And that's not what America wants. So we have to understand that a lot of what we deal with is part of, again, this white supremacist ideology to suppress us. And the chief way that you do it is you suppress and you eliminate black men. And it's a principle found in the Bible, you know, whether we're talking about a Pharaoh trying to kill the men, or whether it's Herod trying to kill, like in trying to stop this Christ figure from emerging, right? And one of the things that they said, who was it, J. Edgar Hoover or whoever it was, you don't want a black messiah.
That was COINTELPRO.
COINTELPRO, right? You don't want this emergence of a black messiah. So you don't want that. So you don't need black manhood having that type of positions. But everything that we're talking about, I get it, but it comes with a price.
Yeah.
It is not something that is, oh, well, we just have to be this. No, the moment you start doing this stuff, especially talking about independent on a platform like this, and it'll grow and it'll emerge, it's going to get tight for us. It's going to get, we're going to have to understand that it's going to rub somebody the wrong way, especially if things become part of the national dialogue and you start changing the consciousness of people. You become very dangerous.
Yeah. And Brother Tony, Pastor Tony, let me just add to that. What we have to realize, and I'm going to quote somebody. Somebody help me out with his name. I'm a little tired, so I'm losing my my ability to name my quotes. But he said, unless you understand white supremacy, everything else will simply confuse you.
That's right.
Everything else you see. Because ordinarily, you shouldn't see people being killed in the streets. Ordinarily, you shouldn't see poverty of the kind that we see, where somebody's blasting off into space, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on that, and a moratorium on evictions is being allowed to pass during a pandemic. You shouldn't see these things. But these are the symptoms of white supremacy. And listen, y'all, they have spent the last 500 or 600 years positioning themselves to be where they are right now. And they are not, they've slaughtered millions of people, right? They've enslaved millions more, right? And they've exploited millions more. And so they've got too much in the game to just let it go. So no matter what you do, no matter what we say, no matter how we say it, we're always going to be a threat if we are questioning white supremacy and the class structure in this country. And those two go hand in hand, because you can't have one without the other.
Nearly Fuller
right.
Jr.
Thank you. Mm-hmm. I couldn't remember Nearly Fuller. Thank you. But if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else will just confuse you.
That's right.
Yeah. Y'all ran out?
No. So, So,
No, I was trying to let everybody go.
so I think I know like these are weighty. I'm sorry, Craig. These are weighty. These are like real weighty issues. Like we're doing some real deep things, and so like just to like I want to bring it home a little bit because I think that what we're first trying to do, right? What we're first trying to do is we're trying to reestablish our voice right within our own homes.
Right.
I think that's where because we are in conflict. We are in conflict with our own women, right? We are in conflict. We are actually fighting for the crumbs that this man is offering. We're fighting for the crumbs. And so a lot of times when you hear this, well, what about women? What about the women too? Is because they know that there is this $100 million like they threw out at Van Jones. There these, these grants that they give. I don't know, brother Tony, if there are any special grants out there for black male entrepreneurs, but I know it's not much. But I know black women can easily do a search and find a plethora of grants out there offered for black women to start businesses. I don't know how many are out there for black men. So it's one of those things where we have to bring it home and bring the community, bring the family back together. There was a movie no, it was a TV series. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was on Netflix. It was the Umbrella Academy, and it was a history in the Umbrella Academy where they were doing this. They were going to have this little rally for voting, right? And when they had the rally for voting, only the men could vote. Only the men could vote. But the women were also there at the rally to talk about who they were going to vote for. It wasn't about, because it is this image, this conception that, I don't know, modern day black women have, that black men, are, leading the patriarchy in some form of fashion. And we've never thought about having the black woman by our side as we move forward for our own liberation. So that it showed an important piece of history when it showed how the black men and the black women, regardless of who had the right to vote, they sat down and they discussed who the community was going to vote for together. This misconception, it's a white feminist thought, it's a white supremacist thought that about black men. But what we got to do now with using our voices is, I'm not saying convince, but I'm saying we have to begin to start a conversation with black women that, look, we are not the enemy. Right. We're not. I mean, brothers may disagree, but this is where I see it. I see it as there's this force, of us, like the Bloods and the Crips almost. I'm on this side and she's on that side, and we have to somehow use our voices to bring that back together. And I think that cohesiveness is going to come out of us bringing that back together.
I think the one of the most poignant things you said was they got us fighting for crumbs, and that's what it's about. We're fighting for those crumbs,
which is what always brings me back to what I keep saying, that we need to build our own institutions. Yeah. We need to invest in our own institutions. So, this is why I'm so happy and proud of you, Dr. Deb, because this platform is needed, just like so many other independent black media platforms. So, and I don't care what your political ideology is so much, because I think our voices as black people, one, we're not a monolithic group. So, I mean, we come in a variety of packaging anyway, but I think that we have to really focus on building up black media, especially in this day and age of censorship, because so many of us, when you think about it, our voices are basically being permitted. They're being permitted on platforms that we don't own. So we need to really build up our own so that others will not have the power to have us fighting for crumbs. and
Right.
and seeing who gets to say a little bit here. But don't say too much now. No, we're gonna cancel you. We're gonna get rid of you. You know what I'm saying? This is the type of stuff that we got to just, black people. If anybody out there could hear me, build our own social media, independent media, entertainment. We listen, we're the talent in everything anyway. We're the
Exactly.
trendsetters. We're the ones that, bruh. I'm just saying, we have so much power, so much untapped power that we don't even realize. And that's why for me it's so traumatic to see the levels of abuse that we continue to go through that we don't have to go through. And we really need to start seeing each other through a different lens, not the lens that they provided us with. This lens of distrust, one that looks at black skin, dark skin, and sees it as an enemy. We have to learn to see it as a friend.
Yeah.
And once we learn to do that, things are going to change. And I love what you said, Pastor Davis, when you said when the black man is free, the what you say, like the black people are free,
Yeah.
brother. That's
Yep.
powerful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I would
That
say
was
I
one.
would like to piggyback off to what your round was saying when he said that it's sort of like men are black men and black women are being pitted against each other, almost like the Bloods and the Crips. Like there's this internal war that we're having, and I think that at at the root of everything, we need to settle that dispute or that this discrepancy that we're having. And I don't think that black men and black women should be pitted, or we should allow ourselves to be pitted against each other. And I think that um, now I'm gonna say this from a traditional sense. I think that women should be comfortable with black men being the lead in most situations, and being the lead of a family structure.
Uh-oh.
Um,
Oh,
you
what?
know, and I know that that's dangerous in this time, this day and age. That's a dangerous statement to make. But I
But
don't
not
think
here.
that we're not here,
But
right?
not
But
here.
I don't think black women should be threatened by a strong black male lead. I don't think that that diminishes her role. I don't think that she should feel less of a contribution to the family structure. And women, that this doesn't take away from what women can do in the workspace academically. It doesn't take away from any of their abilities. But one thing that I would challenge women who feel no need for men, I would challenge them to think about it in a way that in any space, if women, when women go out into the world and they find themselves faced with adversity, i.e., another man or from another race or any type of masculine energy that is threatening to harm them physically, financially, or whatever, what is their fallback? Their fallback
Yeah.
is not going to be, okay, well, let me go get another woman. Your fallback is going to be, I'm going to go home and go get my man. He's going to be able to support me and further handle this. So, and that's the way I kind of just look at the family structure in a way that we are the protector. Traditionally, we are the providers, and we are there to protect our women. Like we have to protect our women. So I don't really think that we should pit ourselves against each other, and women should really be comfortable allowing black men to be the lead. And I think once we can put that part of the argument to bed, I think we'll be in a better space to do all the other things we're talking about.
All
I
right.
think black women are attracted to leadership in men, Dr. Celisha. I think they are attracted to those masculine qualities in a man. I just
I need
think that
to see
too
that.
many women nowadays just don't know how to receive it because, the way that things have been going in society for so long, it's foreign. It's kind of foreign to you. But I mean, let's not get it twisted because a lot of these women that have all of this, I don't need no man energy. You're attracted to men. You're attracted to black masculinity. You are attracted to it. It's just that sometimes we 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 want to control things too much, or we're so used to being in control over everything. We want to dictate how everything is going to go, and that's just not how relationships work. I just think that once we
Well,
start building more trust, hmm? What'd you say?
I said they created the word toxic. They created the word toxic masculinity to use as a weapon against any man that attempts to be the lead of his household. I think that's a problem.
Yeah, then you're gonna have women that say, "Well, a man has to be worthy of leadership," of me humbling myself and all of that kind of stuff. And I kind of get both sides of the argument and all of that. But at the end of the day, I think if you're gonna be in a relationship with someone, I want to see who it is that I'm gonna like. I want to see the real person that I'm dealing with. Like, I think you got to be a wife before we get married. That's me, because I'm not gonna want you to be my wife if I don't know who I'm dealing with. And I think the same type of thing should be with women. You should show, we should be showing each other the qualities that we would like to see in the person that we want to be with for the rest of our lives. But I think society has taught us so much about me. We just forget about what we can offer to a relationship. Everything is viewed through this lens of selfishness.
Yeah.
And I think that selfishness is what cuts us off at the pass, especially in Black relationships, because as a community, we've always had a very strong bond of togetherness, especially when considering our beginnings in this country. So we could not survive without being on code with each other.
That's right.
We couldn't survive without being on the same page. You know what I'm saying? Without Black men and Black women working together for our children and our families. But the enemy has infiltrated, and they have told us, no, that's not the way that your family structure should be. This is the way the family structure should be. That man is toxic. He is oppressing you. Meanwhile, the patriarchy is a white structure, but yet all of the sins of white male patriarchy is being scapegoated to Black men.
Awesome.
And while Black women are pointing all these fingers of toxic masculinity at Black men, you got a hell of a lot of them same white women who's talking all of this stuff. They're going home
with
to
that
their
Black
white husbands and they white children. So a lot of these movements that they keep caping for you, come on, cheering in the background, come on. They're not doing that for themselves.
Right.
They're pushing that on you because they don't want you to work together. They don't want you to be successful as a unit.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So I think we have our topic for September. Because Pastor Franklin already told y'all he's sleepy. But I did promise y'all a 30 minutes. Woo, that was great. And I hate to end it there. Followers, viewers, supporters, we thank you all so much. We're going to take a break. And we're going to probably come back with our first episode in September with this dynamic panel. And we may add as many as StreamYard will allow us to add. There's 6 of us up here right now. We can add 4 more. And we are trying to get Bishop back and Jamil Davis, Pastor Davis's friend, and whomever else you all think I should bring on this platform to round out y'all's discussion. This last part has been like fire. And I kept putting Celisha's comments up there. She's like, I don't know no women like that. They're not in my circle, because she is being intentional, as are many of us, about not being that woman that both Craig and Tony were just talking about, and I thought you were going to say, Craig, when somebody's after us as women, who do we call? Brothers. We don't call nobody but you all. You all die a lot of times because we call y'all into stuff. And so no, I think this is a great discussion. And like I did with this conversation, I will discuss how we craft the topic, but it certainly has to be this male-female relationship. Pastor Davis, haven't I been talking about us being in a big old room, black men and Black women in a big old room, no Vaseline for the women. We're going to all be in our socks. No weapons, nothing other than our mouths. And we're good with our mouths. The women are, in terms of how much we talk. But we need to be able to duke this thing out. And we may not need to have any chairs or tables in there either, because this stuff is deep. In a 1 hour is just not enough. It's just not enough. But I'm so appreciative of all of you. And what it turns out to be is that our these last three, the last episode, the part one, and then this part two, and next week is also going to be a man on tap. I think the week before you all was Senator Jamal Bailey. So we're doing like a male thing. And for those of you who don't know, this was Women's Pay Equality Day. Black women are the ones who lag behind, but I very intentionally did not do it this week because I'm so tired of people putting on a calendar something that we should recognize, when the reality is that tomorrow Black women are going to be in the same situation, still earning what they say almost $1 million less in our lifetime of working than the white man. That's a problem. That's an everyday problem. And so we don't need to identify it as the first Tuesday in August for it to be something that we need to address, because on the 17th, the show on the 17th, we have newly elected city councilwoman Natasha Williams, who was supposed to be here last week but had a
I like her.
conflict. Yes, I like her too. She's about it, everybody. She's about it. She's in South Jamaica, Queens, I guess. I don't know how to term it, but we're looking forward to her. She's young. I think she's going to do some great things in the city council. I'm going to try, and I'm just throwing it out there because this is also Black Business Month. I really do want Minister Rodriguez's wife on here because she has her own business and was able to keep it open during the pandemic. I really have been going back and forth like I do with all of the panelists, trying to get people on the calendar. But hopefully that week we'll be able to talk to her in the same week as we're talking to Natasha. But for next week, we have Congressman Jamal Bowman on here. I want you all to come back and hear from the congressman, because already in our district, let me tell you what he did on this past Saturday here in Co-op City. He had a job resource fair. I don't know how well attended it was, but I don't know about you, Pastor Davis, but in all the time that Elliot Engel, I can say that on here because I don't have to be politically correct. I don't care. I don't care. All the time that Elliot Engel was the congressman representing our area, I don't remember there ever being a job resource fair for this large community. And we know that we are still the underserved in the employment industry. So kudos to Congressman Bowman for doing that, having that initiative up here this past weekend. But let's hear what he has to say. Just before we came on, the CDC did do something to extend the rent moratorium. Tony, as a landlord, I heard the president saying something about checks. I'm just telling you what I heard. I don't know how true any of this is, but Tony is a landlord, and we've talked about that on this show. So while we do want to see people remain in their homes, we have small landlords like Tony who also need to be able to be sustained. So I did hear the president say something about sending checks to landlords. Go follow that up. I don't know.
He ain't saying nothing.
I think he was talking off of the cuff before the CDC, but the CDC thing is good for those who are facing eviction. Thank God for that, because so many millions of people would have faced eviction if they didn't do the stopgap measure. So that's the news that's rolling around today. And so we're going to say goodnight. I want to thank Pastor Davis. I want to thank Minister Rodriguez. I want to thank Tony Lindsay. I want to thank Craig Visions. And I want to thank Pastor Frank, my husband, for being on this platform tonight, sharing so much about what's in the hearts of men. Thank you all so much. And I'm so glad to see you also, Danielle Swinton, being here with us. Listen, guys, I'll see you in the green room. Good night, everybody who follows Black Talk Platform. Thank you all so much, and be safe. God bless you.
Good night.